My own daughter trapped me in the garage, so I taught her a lesson. She'll never forget. I woke up that morning to the sound of laughter. My daughter's laughter. It used to be my favorite sound in the world. But lately, it felt like a cruel echo of something I'd lost long ago. "Dad, don't go anywhere today," Sarah said, brushing past me in the hallway, her tone flat and hurried. "I need you to stay put." I frowned. "Stay put? Why?" She gave me a quick smile. One of those fake ones that don't touch the eyes. "You'll see." Something in her voice told me I wouldn't like what was coming. The garage had always been my refuge. It was where I fixed things: broken chairs, old clocks, toys from when Sarah was little. Back then, she'd sit beside me on a stool, handing me screws and asking endless questions. "Will this clock tick again, Grandpa?" She'd giggle. "It will, sweetheart. Everything can be fixed with a little care, but some things can't be fixed." By afternoon, Sarah came home with her husband, Dan, the man who thought he was smarter than everyone, especially me. He never called me Dad, just George, like we were business partners he didn't respect. They said they needed to talk. We sat at the dining table. Dan cleared his throat. "George, you've been living here rent-free for years. We need to make some changes." "Rent-free?" I repeated, stunned. "I built this house with my hands before you were even born, Dan." Before Sarah learned to walk, Sarah looked down, avoiding my gaze. "Dad, times are tough. We could use the garage for extra space. Maybe even turn it into a studio." I stared at her. "The garage? That's my workshop, Sarah." She sighed. "You barely use it anymore." Dan smirked. "We'll move your stuff out this weekend. You'll still have your room." Something inside me cracked, but I just nodded and walked away. Sometimes silence speaks louder than shouting. The next morning, I went to the garage early, like I always did. I sat on my old stool, running my hands over the worn wood of my workbench. My wife, Mary, used to bring me coffee here. She's gone now. 5 years since cancer took her. But this garage still smelled like her lavender soap and fresh paint. It was the only place that felt like home. Around noon, I heard the door creak. Sarah's voice. "Dad, can you help me check something?" "The light switch in the garage isn't working." "Sure," I said. She stepped aside as I entered. I reached for the wall switch, and then click. The door slammed shut behind me. I turned around. The lock clicked from the outside. "Sarah?" I called. Her voice was muffled. "Sorry, Dad. We just need to move your things out. It'll be easier if you're not in the way. You'll be fine in there for a while." "Sarah, open the door!" I shouted, pounding on it. No response. For a minute, I stood frozen, disbelief washing over me. My own daughter. She locked me in. Hours passed. The air grew heavy. The garage had no windows, only the faint light from a small vent near the ceiling. My throat felt dry, my heart heavy with something darker than anger. Betrayal. I sat down on my stool and stared at the old family photo pinned to the wall. Mary, me, and little Sarah, all smiling in front of this very garage. "I thought you were better than this," I whispered. But as the silence thickened, another thought took hold. Something colder, sharper. If Sarah and Dan wanted to teach me a lesson, maybe it was time I taught them one instead. When the door finally opened that evening, Sarah peeked in cautiously. "Dad? You okay?" I smiled faintly. "Never better." Relieved, she stepped inside. "Good. We're almost done clearing." I slammed the door behind her and turned the lock. Her eyes widened. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Returning the favor," I said quietly. She banged on the door. "This isn't funny." "Let me out." I walked to the workbench and picked up an old photo album, flipping through the pages slowly. "Do you remember this, Sarah? Your 10th birthday? You said I was your hero. Dad, please. You said you'd never forget how I built that dollhouse for you. You cried because it was the prettiest thing you'd ever seen." She went silent. I turned another page. "And now, here you are. treating your old father like an inconvenience. A burden, tears filled her eyes. It's not like that. Dan said, I cut her off. Dan said, what about you, Sarah? Have you forgotten who held your hand when your mother died? Who stayed up all night so you wouldn't cry alone? She covered her face, sobbing. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know what else to do. I stood there for a long moment. Then, finally, I unlocked the door. She stumbled out, still crying. Dad, I'm sorry. Please. But I didn't answer. I just sat back down on my stool. The next day, I packed a small bag and left the house before dawn. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. A week later, Sarah showed up at the old community workshop I used to volunteer at, the one downtown where I taught kids how to repair bikes and toys. Dad, you live here now? She asked softly, tears in her eyes as she saw the little cot in the corner. I smiled. It's peaceful. And I'm useful here. She nodded, guilt etched across her face. I sold the house, she whispered. I couldn't stay there anymore. Every room reminded me of what I did. I didn't want you to sell it, I said quietly. That house was meant for you. I know, she said, voice breaking. But some things can't be fixed. I looked at her, then really looked, and saw my little girl again, the one who used to hand me nails and ask if everything could be repaired. Not everything, I said softly, but we can still try. She fell into my arms, sobbing. That night, she helped me clean the workshop. We worked side by side, quietly. When she left, she paused at the door and said, Dad, I'll come back tomorrow. Maybe we can fix some clocks together, like before I smiled. I'd like that. As she walked away, I turned toward my workbench and picked up an old clock. The same one she'd helped me fix years ago. It had stopped ticking again. But this time, I didn't mind. Because sometimes, silence means healing. And sometimes, the lesson isn't about punishment. It's about reminding someone what love used to sound like.